Tonight in New York, there will be a pivotal Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Final between the Panthers and the Rangers. And those two teams, they don't have everything in common, but they've definitely got one thing in common. And it's something that the local team really does not have. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. When Sam Reinhart ended the overtime game a couple nights ago in Sunrise, he did so by positioning himself at the top of the right circle. The Panthers worked a very familiar pinball play where it goes down low from the point to Alexander Barkov below the goal line. Barkov one-times his pass back to Reinhart. Reinhart one-times a beauty, bar down behind Igor Shesterkin, and ties the series at 2-2. Both of these teams are dangerous on the power play. Both of them for somewhat similar reasons. Again, they've got differences between them. The power play is really not one of them. What you'll see from both Florida and New York is that they'll find a way to work the puck low. They'll find a way to collapse upon the net. They're not afraid to do hard slashing passes through the low slot that are just intended for nothing other than mayhem or someone to swat the puck home. Vinny Trocheck happens to be really good at that, the Upper St. Clair kid who's leading the Rangers in playoff scoring. But the main thing, and this goes back to both of these teams' regular seasons, and actually back further than that, is that they've got a trigger guy. They've got someone who puts home the power play goals. Reinhart, of course, had a career year for the Panthers with 57 total goals, but 27 of those came on the power play. I'm going to repeat that. 27 of his 57 goals came on the power play. For the season, this is incredible. His shooting percentage was 24.5. That's unbelievable. That's like above Mario level when it comes to that specific category. But how and why? Because he was set up for it. He was the trigger man. Similarly, Chris Kreider, who had 39 goals, and he's been a 50-goal guy in the recent past, out of his 39 goals, 18 of them came on the power play. Mika Zibanejad had 12 after him, and Zibanejad was, again, he was more along the lines of that slashing type that I'm describing from earlier, a guy that was finishing by coming in off the left side. That's why Artemi Panarin had 11 and Vinny had 11 in the regular season. But Kreider had 18, and Kreider is the guy that they're looking for. Now, he's not a pure trigger guy in the sense that you'd think with Reinhart and the way Reinhart scored that goal in Game 4. He's right up front. That's the way he's always been, Kreider. He'll go right there and he'll redirect pucks. He's big body, tough to move, really nasty, like a genuinely nasty disposition. Now, everything that I'm describing to you here, every single thing I'm describing to you is not something that is on the Pittsburgh roster. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. And when you go back over the season that the Penguins just had, it doesn't take very deep analysis to see that the power play undid this team. Not just from making the playoffs, but possibly from being something more. If the Penguins had been nothing other than a dangerous power play type team, they could have been a contender. But they weren't. In fact, they weren't even close to it. And the number one reason for that is that they didn't have either of these two things going for them. The slashing through the low slot or the trigger guy. Who's the trigger guy on the Penguins? First thing you can do is just look at their power play goals for individually. The team leader in power play goals was exactly who you'd expect it was. It was Sid. Sidney Crosby had 10. You know who was second? Gino. Evgeny Malkin had 6. You know who was after that? It was a 1, 2, 3, 4-way tie between Jake Gensel, Ricard Raquel, Lars Eller as a third-line center, and Jeff Carter as a fourth-line center who would see time on the second unit of the power play. Brian Rust had only 3 power play goals. Erik Karlsson had 2 power play goals. Riley Smith, who was supposed to be part of some kind of solution to something, had 1 power play goal all season. Michael Bunting, we all sang about what he contributed to this team, and he did make a lot of differences, but he had 1 power play goal in 21 games after coming to Pittsburgh. So, who's your trigger guy? Who's the one that's making it happen? You can't say it's Bunting because you can't say you're sending him to the front of the net. He was your bumper guy. He's not going to score from out there. And Sid's not going to set up out there. And Gino's not going to set up out there. Sid's going to go down low. Gino's going to be a point man. Bunting's your bumper. Karlsson's your right point. You see where I'm going here? Who's your trigger guy? Who's the one that's supposed to finish? Who's the intended target for the finish? If you ask the Panthers and the Rangers, they've got their answers. They've actually got multiple answers. The Penguins have none. And that is a very, very real problem that between Kyle Dubas and Mike Sullivan, they'd better at least attempt to solve this summer. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from AJ, who says, DK, watching Evan Rodriguez and Dmitry Kulikov playing very well for Florida in the Eastern Conference Final makes me wonder about some of the Penguins' evaluation and usage. Both of these guys are contributing as part of a relentless forechecking team, which, as I recall, the Penguins themselves want to be. I'm not going to lump them together because these could not be 2 more different players in addition to being different positions. Starting on purpose with Kulikov, he was here for such a short time and then got hurt, and then contractually it became a decision of whether or not you want to keep him. It's not like they got rid of Kulikov. It's not like he ever had a chance to show anything here. I would hope, and this is probably placing some unfair pressure on him with the comparison, but I would hope that John Ludwig can become a third pairing mainstay. That doesn't mean that he would be a third pairing guy the caliber of Kulikov, who's an accomplished international player, but it does mean that maybe he could bring you some of that edge. Ludwig's main shortcoming to date, he'd tell you this himself, so I'm not taking a shot at him, is that he can't stay on the ice. It's been some awful luck that he's experienced so far in the very early stages of his late blossoming NHL career, so you really, really don't like that. When you're at his age, in the mid-20s, and you get your chance, you need to make those stick. Otherwise, you get labeled and then you get stuck, which is very different than sticking. We'll see how that plays itself out. I wouldn't attach Kulikov to any sort of this or that or didn't fit or whatever. Rodriguez, on the other hand, there are a lot of irrational and unfair criticisms of Mike Sullivan that make the rounds. If you ever want to levy a real and fair one, then go right at him for what happened to Rodriguez. Evan scored what should have been a massive goal in Game 7 at Madison Square Garden in the Penguins' last playoff appearance. However, in Game 6, just before that, back in Pittsburgh, Evan took a really ill-advised, I don't care who your coach is or what your team is, a really ill-advised retaliation penalty that ended up handing that game to the Rangers. And that, a lot of people felt, and correctly so, was the Penguins' best chance to really close out that series while being hamstrung by having their number 3 goaltender in net. My understanding, and I've reported this in print, was that it was Sullivan who didn't want Rodriguez around after that. And that's why Rodriguez just sat there, available in free agency year after year. Whichever team came with $1 million was going to get Evan. And then ultimately he ended up in a good place, and I do mean good place, like a good fit for him, with the Panthers, with Paul Maurice's system, with not having to produce in some primary capacity given all the depth that Florida's got up front. And Evan, to his credit, has made the most of that. I felt at the time as if Sullivan and the Penguins grossly overreacted to a very human error, and I felt and expressed multiple times that Evan should have been brought back to Pittsburgh. So that's why I wanted to separate the two, because as you can tell, their stories have nothing in common. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins, and we're going to do another one of these tomorrow.